I'm going to keep it 100% with you guys. In my line of work, there are some storylines that I tend to anticipate a little bit more consistently than other storylines. For example, in the past 3 months, I think I made something like 200 videos on how melodramatic the Ben Simmons situation has been. But prior to that, I would make content with a specific expectation for each and every player, and some storylines get a little repetitive. For example, since the beginning of my career, Kyrie Irving has always taken pride in just saying stuff to just drive the media crazy, whether it's the world is flat, all the way to him stomping on the Boston Celtics logo during the end of the playoffs. And in the case of Zion Williamson, this is a consistent theme that is kind of disappointing, I must admit. And I was going to ignore this before, but this is really terrifying. So before we get to the content, just a reminder, I'm going to be giving away multiple copies of NBA 2K21 within the next 2 weeks on my community tab. All you have to do to enter is subscribe and turn on our notifications for this channel. We also do a lot more giveaways on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow us over there. And if you could take a moment and leave a like on this content, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We literally had an entire podcast episode on this, and this was something I really was going to ignore because I was thinking, how bad did Zion really look? And at first glance, when I was looking at his first press conference during New Orleans Pelicans Media Day, I was like, okay, Zion looks just about normal, just how I expect him to look, but maybe he put on a few pounds. Not so much that I should blow this out of proportion, not so much that we need to make its own video on. And then a couple days later, I was just scrolling through Twitter, and someone tweeted me a picture of how Zion looked like during his days at Duke University. When you compare how he looked during his time at Duke to his rookie season to the end of last year to how he looks right now, then there is cause for concern. And here's the thing, all of the things that we were saying the moment he was getting drafted, all of the concerns we had the moment that he got drafted about, hey, he's playing a little bit too heavy, his weight distribution for a 6'7" man could really hamper his career, all of the warning signs have been there so far, starting all the way during that very famous game when Duke University took on the North Carolina Tar Heels in 2019, when he famously blew out his shoe with the sheer force of his weight. And back then, we actually thought this was the shoe's fault. I remember Nike was dealing with this press nightmare for quite some time, but at the time, there was no one thinking, hey, maybe Zion is a little bit too heavy for his weight. Maybe this is something that could potentially hamper his career. We kind of ignored it for the most part until he sustained a pretty crazy knee injury in the Summer League in 2019, which at that point it was a fairly big deal because think about it, we didn't get to see the #1 overall pick, which by the way was being hyped up to the level of LeBron James probably. I don't think I've seen a player hyped up as much as LeBron James since probably Lonzo Ball, and then maybe after Lonzo Ball, we got Zion Williamson. They were hyping this kid up as the next transcendent player. So Zion would have some mysterious knee injury, and the Pelicans said that we were going to just proceed with caution here, and we're going to shut him down for the rest of Summer League because apparently Summer League isn't important to them, which makes sense. But moving on, Zion would tear his meniscus in the 2019 preseason. So the unfortunate part about this injury is now, instead of seeing a bunch of highlights from Zion Williamson in Summer League, all we got was pictures of Zion Williamson looking hefty and a little overweight during Summer League. And I think this is when the storyline and the narrative of Zion is overweight began. Of course, I'm sure these issues were going to subside a little bit once the preseason started. After all, Luka Doncic was always kind of roasted for his weight. He wasn't necessarily in the greatest playing shape. He always looks really, really exhausted at the end of games, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. But when Zion tore his meniscus during the 2019 preseason, which by the way is also in his knee, he he would miss the first 44 games of the season, and during this time there was significant drama about whether or not it was time for Zion Williamson to come back, or whether they should hold off on him. Maybe they should wait until he loses some weight, because playing at the weight that Zion Williamson does, at the intensity and rigors of an NBA game, was just simply not sustainable. At some point or another, this man was at least expected to have a significant injury that could completely alter the course of his career. And as much as I hope I'm wrong, that's probably what everyone's concern was. If you look at a player like DeMarcus Cousins, for example, the man tore his Achilles tendon mainly because of the weight distribution on the height that he had. And by the time he did lose the weight that he needed to, it was a little bit too late. And even then he tore his ACL because it was a little bit too late. When you look at LeBron James, historically, he was a little hefty during his Miami Heat years, and when he went back to Cleveland in 2014, he lost a significant amount of weight. And then even more recently, this past year with the Lakers, he lost a lot of weight as well. We made a video on that as well, mainly because this is not a situation where you could be playing at a very hefty weight if you want to move around on a basketball court the way you do without sustaining a crazy injury. Now, last year in August, Zion Williamson would also have right knee soreness, and that brings us more or less all the way up to today, where apparently, and this is where it gets a little creepy to me, the reason why Zion Williamson looks the way he does in this interview isn't because David Griffin decided to play the piano for him, because apparently, according to Zion, that is a rumor.
How I feel about the organization? Per me. I love it here. I love the city of New Orleans. Don't want to be anywhere else. My relationship with Griff, I don't think he can play the piano, last time I checked. But yeah, it's all love with me and Griff. It ain't much to dive into. It's just love between us. We're both competitors. We both want to win. Do we disagree on some things? Yeah. I mean, who agrees on everything? We don't. But I think that's what makes our relationship great. We both bring the best out of each other, and we're going to keep building off that.
But apparently, Zion Williamson had surgery on a fractured right foot, and he's expected back in time for the regular season. Okay, yeah, that happened out of nowhere. Get a look at this. Apparently, this is something the New Orleans Pelicans announced at their media day last week, where David Griffin informed the media that all-star forward Zion Williamson underwent surgery to repair a fractured foot earlier in the offseason and is hoping to return in time for the start of the regular season, saying that Zion is returning from a foot surgery suffered at the beginning of summer, which at that point you're kind of like, wait, what? But get this, while the beginning of summer isn't exactly accurate, but earlier in the offseason prior to Summer League. So it seems like they're not even being straightforward about how he sustained his injury. He had a fractured right foot that was repaired surgically. His timeline should get him on the court in time for the regular season. That would be our hope and our view. We're very optimistic about what that looks like. Unfortunately, I know that's going to be taken as a very big negative for all of you. It's really not for us because we were dealing with it all off season. We feel very confident about where things are. So Zion Williamson had this mystery injury that is a pretty significant injury, might I add. And that is apparently the reason why he has this crazy weight gain. And oh my God, the fact that the Pelicans had to hide this from us is already a cause for concern. I mean, this is a guy that is supposed to be the next big transcendent super athletic megastar in the NBA. Part of the reason why so many teams were excited to potentially draft him with the #1 overall pick is how marketable the guy is. And here you are having him look, one, extremely overweight, and two, the injury that he sustained is as a result of how overweight he might be. I mean, the thing that bothers me is you keep on getting these hints that, hey, this man needs to drop a couple of pounds or maybe change his diet or do something, because he blew through a shoe in 2019. A few months later, he would also sustain a knee injury. And hey, a couple of months later, at the start of his rookie year, the man would sustain a torn meniscus, another knee injury. And now he has a broken foot. I mean, how many hints do you need at this this point that, hey, this guy needs to drop a significant amount of weight. I'm not saying that, hey, Zion Williamson's extremely fat. No, I'm saying that even in terms of muscle and fat distribution, relative to a 6'7" player's body, relative to what he does on a day-to-day basis, which is play basketball, which is very dependent on his ability to make quick turns and cuts, which is something that Zion Williamson's really good at doing, he needs to drop weight before he sustains a torn ACL, before he gets a torn Achilles tendon, before we lose quite possibly one of the most transcendent talents in NBA history. Something needs to be done here. I mean, again, look at his time in Duke, which, by the way, even his Duke physique, even when he looked like this, he blew out his knee. And then look at how he looked in Pelicans Media Day and tell me this is not a cause for concern. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this, man. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion. I mean, who knows? I'm known to be fairly melodramatic myself. But aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.